Okay, now this is where we are in our study. We've just finished looking at the outpouring of the 7 plagues or the 7 bowls of wrath that God intended to pour out upon the persecutors, upon Rome. Remember, John saw these 7 angels, and each angel had a bowl of wrath or plagues that was going to be poured out upon all the earth. And by the way, let me ask you this. Now, when we talk about these things being poured out upon the earth, what are we talking about? Earth is representative of Rome. Earth is representative of Rome. I'm not talking about pouring out bowls of wrath upon Danville or Indianapolis or Washington, D.C. This is poured out upon the persecutors. And so when we talk about, poured out upon the earth, it's going to be various aspects of Rome that this is going to be poured out upon. And in addition to that, you're going to see that he indicates that those who had not received the mark of the beast would be exempt from these bowls of wrath. And who are those who did not receive the mark of the beast? Christians. Those who are faithful to the Lord. Those who have been sealed. You remember back in Revelation 7. Those who had come through the Great Tribulation. These are the ones that are going to be exempt from these bowls of wrath that is poured out upon the inhabitants of Rome, or upon the Roman Empire. So as we indicated before, this is indicative of God avenging His saints. And what I want to do is take just a minute now to review each one of these bowls that was poured out, and to kind of we got to get a visual here. And we've got to get a message here of what's going on. Of course, this occurs back in chapter 16. The prelude to this was chapter 15. The pouring out of these bowls of wrath was in chapter 16. We looked at last Sunday and again on Wednesday. Now, the first bowl that was poured out, what does the Bible say about it? It was poured out upon who? I'm sorry? Well, but now it was poured out upon the earth, and what happened?
Okay. It was poured out upon the men who had the mark of the beast, those who had worshipped the image of the emperor.
Yeah, and loathsome sores and stuff came out. So now there's the visual, and the message is that this is referencing the internal decay of Rome. Now, these people had received special consideration. They had the mark of the beast. They were able to buy and sell and prosper. But now, the decadence of Rome was so great that those who had received this special favor are now going to receive special condemnation. So always get not just the visual, but try to get the message that's involved in the visual. What is the next bowl? It was poured out upon what? Upon the seas. And what happened? The seas became blood, and all that was in it died. And so what we see now when that occurs is that the economic decline of Rome. Rome certainly depended upon trade throughout the world, throughout the Roman Empire. God is going to strike that. God is going to strike the worshipers of the beast. God is going to strike the economic superiority of Rome. Now the next bowl poured out upon rivers and streams, and they too became blood. And this would show you the internal erosion of Rome. And Rome is going to decay from the inside. And that's usually how great nations crumble, because of the decadence and the immorality that is within the culture itself. And so while God is going to smite those who worship the beast, God is going to smite the economic security of Rome. He's also going to strike internally and erode Rome from within. The fourth beast came upon those again who were worshipers of Rome. They struck the sun, and they were going to be burned as with fire. And as we indicated in looking at this, God says, fire you want, fire you'll get. You burn Christians, you light your gardens with the bodies of dead Christians, you light them on fire. Fire you want, fire you will get. So again, we see God striking at the very heart of the Roman Empire and the worshipers of Rome. And then He strikes at the throne of the beast. And we see darkness setting in. And what we need to understand from that is, regardless of the power that Rome had, the leaders, the emperors of Rome were foolish leaders. They made foolish decisions. They made foolish policies. And as a result of their foolish policies, of course, it was bringing a lot of pain upon the inhabitants of Rome as well as upon the Christians. But they didn't realize this. They didn't seem to realize this. And I would tell you, that's one thing we need to realize. Throughout the Bible, we pointed out, I think Wednesday night, in Ecclesiastes 10, God says, a nation that has foolish leaders or has children for leaders is going to suffer. And that's true in any generation. And Rome has some foolish leaders. And so when God is seeking to bring down or punish a nation because of the internal decadence that's involved there, they will be led by foolish leaders that make foolish policy decisions that hurt the nation. Mo?
These leaders were gods, and they couldn't be wrong.
Oh, right.
So whatever decisions they made.
That's exactly right. The emperors of Rome were gods in their mind and gods in the minds of the people who were there. And so, as Mo said, they couldn't be wrong. And again, you can see, I'm not, I enjoy history. And I like reading a lot of history. I haven't read as much as available on the fall and decline of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. But you can read in historical documents about the leaders of Rome, the wicked leaders of Rome, and the foolish leaders of Rome, the homosexual leaders of Rome, the pedophilic leaders of Rome. I mean, we're talking about some just unsavory, ungodly leaders. And indeed, what you have is darkness settling in on the throne of the beast. And then there was the drying up of the Euphrates, which would be symbolic of taking down all the barriers to provide for external invasion of Rome. And of course, that had a lot to do with the fall of Rome. The Parthians and the others, the barbarians and the others that came in and destroyed Rome. And then the seventh bowl, the dividing of Rome into three parts. The city was divided into three parts. That's the dividing and the conquering of Rome. Now, all of these, say one thing. Let's put all of these together. Now, what is the message that we just got from looking at these seven bowls of wrath that's poured out upon Babylon or upon the Roman Empire, upon Rome? What's the one message that we need to see? Exactly right. What we're seeing here is Babylon the Great had fallen. Babylon here is synonymous or metaphoric reference to Rome. Babylon is falling. Rome is going down. Now, I know this sounds redundant. You hear Mike and I saying this quite often. It sounds redundant, but that's the theme of the seven seals, the four horsemen. That's the message of the seven bowls of wrath, the sounding of the seven trumpets. All of these are indicating the same thing. Your persecutors are going to be destroyed. Rome is going down. Now, we get into chapter 17. Chapter 17 is, and I indicate that in the worksheet here, is probably one of the, if not the most difficult chapters in the book. Now, it's difficult for several reasons. Number one, because I think a lot of times we set aside what we know about apocalyptic literature. And we tend to literalize this, especially when it talks about the seven kings. So, we try to, that begins with Julius Caesar, and we try to literalize that. So don't set aside what we know about apocalyptic literature. If we don't, then that's going to make this chapter somewhat easier to understand. It's difficult too, because as we indicate in the outline, there's a riddle that's in this chapter. And that riddle tends to give a lot of people a lot of problems because, again, they try to understand the riddle by maybe literalizing it a little more than we should. But when you get into chapter 17, he's going to be shown, John is, a vision. And this vision is extremely interesting. He's going to see a scarlet woman who is sitting on or riding a scarlet beast. And she's also said to be sitting on many waters. Now that's how the chapter begins. Keep in mind, it came on the heels of the 7 bowls of wrath being poured out upon Rome. And now John goes from that to seeing this image of a woman sitting on this scarlet beast. She's got a golden cup in her hand. She's drunk, and she's sitting upon many waters. And John is going to look at this image, and he's going to marvel. He's going to just be astonished at what he sees. And then the angel is going to say to him, well, why are you astonished? Let me explain to you what you're looking at. But then even in the explanation, he's given a riddle. And he's told that, well, she represents this, she represents that. But again, it raises, at least in our study, a lot of interesting questions. What about this? Who perhaps is under consideration? So let's take just a moment and let's read through. Well, let's just go through probably the first 6 verses here and try to get a handle on that. We'll ask Kyle, if he would, to read those first 6 verses of of Revelation 17. Now keep in mind, kind of this picture that we've got up here on the board as Kyle leads us in this reading. Kyle.
Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and spoke with me, saying, Come here, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed acts of immorality, and those who dwell on the earth were made drunk with the wine of her immorality. And he carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, full of blasphemous names, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was clothed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a gold cup full of abominations and of the unclean things of her immorality. And on her forehead was a name was written, a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the witness of Jesus. When I saw her, I wondered greatly.
Okay, now that again, what Kyle is reading there is the picture that we have here, or at least the artist's rendition of that picture. Now this is the vision that he sees. Now let's break it down just a little bit, and let's go through some of the things that he sees. He sees a great harlot. Now I know the word the King James Version uses, and in deference to sensitivity, I'll just refer to this as a harlot or a prostitute. However, it translates the word porneia, and that's an interesting that's an interesting word in the Greek, because it's the same word from which we get the word pornography. And so several times in this chapter, we're referred to, or John is referring us to the fact that we're looking at sexual immorality here. On the part of Rome, on the part of this woman, on the part of this great harlot. She's said to be a woman, a great porneia. Now, what's also interesting is what she does with the kings of this earth. It says that what she does is commits fornication with them, which is a form of that same word. Sexual immorality, porneia, with the kings of this earth. And so what we've got to, I say that in the context of this. Our culture today, like the culture of Rome, was preoccupied and obsessed with sex. Now, if that's offensive to somebody, it's only going to be offensive to those who don't have television. All you've got to do is watch commercials. There's some commercials that come on TV that absolutely should be, as far as the Christian is concerned, totally embarrassing. But it just shows you how preoccupied we are with the concept of sex in this culture. It sells. It sells in movies. It sells on TV. It sells commercials. We're just obsessed with it. Rome was the same way. There were brothels in Rome. There were bathhouses in Rome. There were all of these things in Rome that catered to this idea of sex. Now, I understand, too, that God often uses this, fornication, adultery, in reference to idolatry. That, as far as God is concerned, it's committing fornication when one serves another god. This is true, too, of Rome. But you've got to take all of that into consideration. Here's how God views this decadent empire. Here's how God views it. He views it as a prostitute who's prostituting herself with the kings of this world. Now that's what John sees. John is seeing this disgusting woman, this prostitute, this harlot that is selling herself to the kings of this earth. Now that's the disgusting picture that John gets there. And John says she sits on both the beast and many waters. What do you think that's referencing? Here this prostitute is sitting on this beast, and she's sitting on the many waters. The idea of sits on, what do you think that's referencing? Beg pardon? Exactly. If someone is sitting upon a throne, it's indicative that he doesn't spend his whole life sitting on that throne. It indicates that he rules as a king from a throne. She's sitting on many waters. She rules many waters. She's sitting on this beast that came up out of the earth in Revelation 13. She rules the beast. She rules many waters. So she's sitting on, this prostitute is sitting on many waters in this beast. She's dressed with purple, scarlet. She's adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. She's gaudy. She's worldly. She's all of that which is an antithesis of, remember the woman back in chapter 12? Just the complete opposite of that woman that gave birth to the man-child. This woman is worldly. She's ungodly. She's gaudy. She's everything that a good, precious, virtuous woman ought not be. Furthermore, she arrogantly wears her name on her forehead, the mother of harlots. Now, do you think she really is, like the little picture there, tattooed with that? What do you think, David? No. Probably doesn't have that written up, but this just identifies who she is. Remember, God's people have been sealed. Those who serve the beast have been marked. Now she's going to be marked for what she is. She's the mother of harlots. What do you think that means, Richard?
She got good shape.
Yeah, she's the source of it. She produces this. Exactly right. And so this is what John is getting a picture of. She held a cup, a golden cup in her hand, rather than being a cup of wine, rather than being a cup of any kind of liquid. What she has here is a cup of sin, a cup of filth, a cup of crimes, a cup of allurements with which she enticed and seduced mankind. Furthermore, she's intoxicated with the blood of the saints, with the blood of the martyrs, and I don't see any need here to separate the two. They would fall within the same category. Those who were saints, faithful to God, were martyrs. And so she's intoxicated with the slaughter of God's people, according to verse 6. She's just drunk with the wickedness that has been occurring here. Now, that's a pretty dismal picture. And I got to tell you, if you read the book of Revelation and this doesn't catch your attention here, I think we've read it, about half asleep. Now, this is what John sees, and John, whoa, what is this that I see? Now, as we get on into the, and I'm going to have some more to say about this, but as we get on into the latter part of the chapter, what we find now is John getting a revelation of the mystery that is explained. Now he's given this vision. What does it mean? Now it's explained. And so let's pick up our reading now in verse 7 and go through verse 18. Michael, would you take care of that for us? Revelation 17, verses 7 through 18. Now he's going to be given an explanation from the angel as to what he had just seen. But again, keep in mind, this is going to pose some interesting questions as far as we're concerned. He's seen the vision. Now the angel says there's no sense of... Let me tell you what this is about here. Michael.
But the angel said to me, "Why did you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The beast that you saw was and is not, and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition. And those who dwell on earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. When they see the beast that was and is not, and yet is, here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are the 7 mountains on which the woman sits. There are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, one is, and the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short time. The beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th, and is of the 7, and is going to perdition. Then the 10 horns which you saw are the 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority from 1 hour as kings with the beast. These are the one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. These will make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those who are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. And he said to me, the waters which you saw, where the harlot sits, are the peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. And the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot, make her desolate and naked, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to fulfill his purpose, to be of one mind, and to give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. And the woman who you saw in the great city, which reigns over the kings of the earth."
Okay, thanks, Michael. You kind of notice now in the reading and just kind of in following along, it seems like he's sort of building here. And then he gets down to verse 18 and he kind of throws it in at the end. Oh yeah, let me tell you, this woman, she's the great city, which reigns over the kings of the earth. So he identifies in the woman as this great city. We'll talk about that in a moment. But notice what he also said in verse 9. He said, "Here is the mind which has wisdom." Now, I'm looking out over what I consider to be an intelligent, wise group of people. So I'm going to ask you, then, here's the mind which has wisdom. Tell me the meaning of the riddle that he gives. When he talks about 7 kings, 5 have fallen, one is not, one is coming. When he comes, number 7 is going to actually be number 8. You see what I'm talking about? This is an interesting, difficult chapter here. But then going back up, he said, "Oh, by the way," said, "the beast that you saw was and is not and will sing out of the bottomless pit. And then he will go into perdition." That's kind of an interesting scenario as well. But let's try to talk about that as he gives the explanation of the beast. Now let's look at some of these things that he says and then make an application. Obviously, the beast is the Roman Empire. Go back to chapter 13. The beast came up out of the sea. We talked about that in our study of that chapter, and he identifies this thing upon which the woman is sitting as the beast, and that would be the Roman Empire. So the woman, according to verse 18, is what? The great city. Now this is the woman is the great city, the beast is the great empire. That's something we need to remember as well. The beast was full of blasphemous names. Now, what blasphemous names emanated from the beast? from the Roman Empire. Or what was the Roman Empire forcing Christians to do? Or striving to force Christians to do?
Take oaths to their
Say again?
Take oaths to Caesar.
Yeah. Confess Caesar is God, or Caesar is Lord. That's a blasphemous name. And by the way, let me remind you again that when the writer here talks about receiving the mark of the beast on the forehead or on the right hand, he's addressing those on the forehead who genuinely in their heart accept Caesar as God. Those who receive the mark on their right hand are those who pay homage to the beast with mental reservation. I don't really believe this, but I'm going to confess this so that I can buy and my family can be supported and my little girl can be taken care of and my little boy can be taken care of. Those are the ones who receive the mark on the right hand. Those who pay homage to the beast with mental reservation. Now there are those who genuinely accept Caesar as God. And they do it, they have the mark on their forehead. That is something they believe in their heart. But there is no room for compromise. You can't do this. And I guess we need to take some lessons from that in the 21st century. There is no way that we can compromise the truth of the Scriptures in order to succeed in life, in order to take care of this or take care of... We can't do that. Because the empire who demands this is full of blasphemous names. It's something that's an impossibility to accomplish. Okay, and the next thing we need to see, he has 7 heads and 10 horns. That just indicates the totality of his power, the totality of his authority. And again, we're just getting a description of the beast here. We'll talk more about this in a moment. And then we see that he's governed, as we said a moment ago, by the harlot. And now we address the riddle. Now there are several ideas that are put forward to try to explain this riddle. Now, when we talked about the beast in chapter 13 that rose out of the sea, we tied that beast with what Old Testament prophecy? Anybody recall? Daniel 7. Remember Daniel 7 when Daniel saw these beasts that came. And so what we need to realize is that the beast that he sees in the book of Revelation, I'm confident, is the 4th beast that Daniel sees in Daniel 7. And so what a lot of people do, and I think in this regard, there's some merit to this. A lot of people see that what John is really seeing here, when he looks at this beast, is he's seeing the lion that was one of the beasts that Daniel saw, that was just really absorbed by the bear. You remember the Babylonian Empire was amassed and taken over by the Medes and the Persians, and then that beast was taken over by a three-headed leopard, which would of course have been the Grecian Empire. And then what you see in here is this beast with 10 horns and 7 heads, total control. So he's talking about Rome here, but that really doesn't address the riddle. Now let's look at it again. The beast you saw was and is not, will ascend out of the bottomless pit. Then what he does is just kind of segues into the fact that the beast and the kings are one and the same. He said, you remember the 7 heads, 10 horns? He said these are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other is not, or the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he's going to continue for a short while. The beast that was and is not is himself, also the 8th, and is of the 7, and is going to perdition. The 10 horns? Why? These are 10 kings, which have yet received no authority. And so some of the different ideas about this is this. Some people say, well, he's really referencing here Roman emperors. And we'll go back and we'll start with Augustus. And we'll go through Tiberius and Caligula and Claudius and Nero and Vespasian and Titus and Domitian. And so, but now, what's wrong with taking that approach? And he's really talking about Roman emperors here. He's talking about 7 or 8 Roman emperors.
Well, that's a literal interpretation of what is
The
the
number
figurative language. You know, we haven't done that with anything else. Why do that with this?
Exactly right. We recognize that they're really not 7 trumpets that have been sounded. We understand the use of numerology there. But yet when it comes to this chapter, we want to make that sort of a literal thing. And we try to fit in these kings here, these emperors. Now you read various commentators, and almost every commentary that I have on the book of Revelation tries to do just that. Well, and you really run into problems because you leave out. So remember, you have to decide where you want to start and who you want to leave out in order to get here. Let's erase that. That's not what he's talking about here. We can't literalize this because we're going to lose out. Well, another theory is that he's really talking about the Babylonian Empire being revived. This is a common concept. The 7 heads begin with Egypt, go to Assyria, Babylon, Medes and Persians, the Grecian, the Roman, the revised Roman Empire, and then the 8th would be the Babylonian Empire again, revived, which a lot of premillennials look at that today and they see what's going on in the Middle East and they see ISIS that is taking over Syria and Babylon, or Syria and Iraq, where ancient Babylon resided, and they're saying this is the fulfillment of that. The revision of the wicked Babylonian Empire. That's a position that some have in explaining the riddle. Others just think it's a sequential ancient kingdoms theory, beginning with Egypt, going up through pagan Rome, and then Roman Catholic Church, Papal Rome, and then the 8th kingdom again would be one yet in the future. What do you see? Here's just some theory. What do you see here? In consistency with what we've been studying. What do you see? Richard? Well, it's spiritual. The conflict is spiritual in nature, but obviously there's some physical suffering that's going on here. There's no doubt about that. But you're saying rather than looking at a physical kingdom, look at spiritual kingdom. Spiritual kingdom. Okay.
Well, I mean, I look at this, the 7 as being, the complete, fullness of the Roman Empire, its full reign. And we're not done with it yet. I mean, we've seen a lot of things where it talks about, Babylon has fallen, it's over, and spiritually speaking, yeah, it is. God and his forces are going to win. But we're not quite through with Rome yet. And you Christians, you're still going to have to endure for a little while. You're on the right side. Your side's going to win. But the empire's not done yet.
And keep with the thought that David just put forth, keep in mind what is said in Revelation 2 and verse 10. Be faithful unto death, even if it involves your death. You be faithful. You're going to win. You may not win in this life, but Christianity is going to survive, and you will survive in eternity. And those are the 2 things that the Christians need to really think about. Now, looking at this from a very strictly, keeping it within the context of what it is that we've been studying in the book of Revelation, let's keep in mind what we're talking about here. We're talking about the Roman Empire governed by the city of Rome that had far-reaching tentacles that were going out all over the Mediterranean world and then even beyond. And so when he talks about this, up here beginning in verse 9, this beast is not, was and is not, and will ascend. You might want to look at this, maybe just from a contextual standpoint, that persecution began with Nero, and then it subsided, and then it rose again with Domitian, is what they're dealing with here. Is that maybe what you're looking at there? It was, is not, and now it is again. It came out of the bottomless pit. It's going to go into perdition. It's not going to be successful. And when he talks about these kings and these horns and the rule and the authority that they had, what I think he's talking about here, and it's not just, don't look and try to get, Augustus and Tiberius and Caligula. What he's telling is any kingdom, no matter who it is, any power, no matter how great that it is destined to be destroyed. It's not going to succeed. No matter how much power they have, no matter how many times they revive, no matter how many times they come at you, it's just simply not going to succeed. And I'll tell you something that David also pointed out that I want to highlight here. Especially when we get to Revelation chapter 20. I think what we're looking at there is a glimpse of the fact that the devil is not through. Not just in the first century. He's not through as a persecuting power so long as the earth remains. The devil will be released for a little while. And that's what I think you see here. I think you see that the devil is going to be released for a little while, but listen, regardless of that, Rome and your persecutors are going to fall. They're going to be destroyed. And we are on the winning side. Now, let's talk about the harlot in the few minutes that we have remaining here, because he has some things to say about her. He said, the waters upon which the harlot sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. I'm going to put a map up there. And I want you to think about it. I referred to this a moment ago. The first century Roman Empire are all of these light and dark green areas. The light and the green, just different times at which Rome took them over. And if you notice, Rome ruled from the what would be Iraq, Mesopotamia, down into Egypt, northern Africa, Europe, all the way up to Britain. The Roman Empire was basically a worldwide empire at the time. This is the idea of the woman ruling over many tongues, nationalities, and people. Now, the interesting thing about the Roman Empire was this. Whenever they would annex a country, such as Britannia or Gaul, France, and some of these other countries, they would allow them to keep their language, and they would allow them to keep their deities, so long as they acknowledged Caesar as God. And so what that was, that was really a diverse empire. They had different cultures, different gods, and different everything. So it was really a diverse empire. Now, if you go back to Daniel chapter 2, you see in verses 42 and 43 of Daniel 2, with the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, this fourth empire has feet made out of what? Iron mixed with clay, things which do not adhere. They're not cohesive. And that led to the downfall of Rome. You know, we hear in our culture today that we're strong because of our diversity. That is foolishness. This nation is not strong because of our diversity. It will be torn apart. That's what diversity does. That's why, the motto of this country was E pluribus unum, out of many, one. But now we have out of one, many. And that's what happened to Rome. And that's what John is able to see here. She's ruling over many nations, tongues, and water. And the 10 kings are puppet kings. They're just subservient to Rome. They don't have an empire. They don't have a kingdom. You think of King Herod. Herod wasn't a king in the sense of being a regal monarch. He was just a puppet of Rome. And that's the way all of these kings, they may have been a king of Gaul. There may have been a king of Britannia. But they were just puppet kings. They were subservient to the city of Rome. But now they're going to turn on Rome and devour her. And this is all under the judgment of God. God is going to bring it about. And the woman, she's the great city that reigns over the kings of the earth, and that city is Rome. The city of Rome, ruling over the empire of Rome, that ruled over the kings of the earth, that is going to be destroyed. God said, here's how it's going to happen. I'm behind it. All of the decadence is going to come out of it. It's going to erode them. Their diversity is going to destroy them, and all of these kings are going to turn upon Rome and destroy the city, destroy the empire. That's how God said it's going to be brought about. Now, chapter 18 is going to continue talking about that. It's going to continue this concept and this approach that we've been studying here in chapter 17. I know I didn't get into the questions, but I answered all the questions for you in the class. Any comments? Any observations? That's a good time.